YouTube, what is going on? My name is Corporate Serf, and thank you all for tuning in to another video here on the channel. So our last video was the top 50 tracking list, and it has been so fun to see your guys' reactions to that. Thank you all for interacting, whether you liked it or you absolutely hated it. It's been really cool to see what you all think. But now we got to jump back into some of our aim experimentation, our tracking training theory. And so we're coming back with another quote from another great mind, the Renaissance man, Leonardo da Vinci. He says, "Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication." Now, with a lot of things, a lot of art, a lot of literature, there are sometimes quotes and things that are up for interpretation. And so your interpretation of this, if you have one, is good. But I thought that this AI overview was really cool, and I think it explains this really well for everyone. To quote the overview here, Leonardo da Vinci is saying, "Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication," suggests that true sophistication lies not in complexity, but in straightforward and elegant approach. It implies that understanding and appreciating something at its core without unnecessary embellishment reveals its true depth and its beauty. Damn! That's the type of quote to make you say, wow! So without unnecessary embellishment, let's look at tracking for what it is. Let's make it simple. And in particular, let's keep this method I'm talking about simple. So as the title of this video suggests, our method here is performance inspired. So if we're targeting a specific level of performance, it's seemingly important to break down and evaluate the value of a peak performance on a scenario. So as you'll see at the top, it says my tracking accuracy targets. This is referring to peak performance. I say this with all my videos, but it's really true. These are just my opinions. This is how I see the value of a task when your peak performance is at a certain threshold. These are my evaluations for how I do on a task and how I perceive it. Let's start at the top. 1% peak accuracy, waste of time. You are on the wrong task, buddy. 10%, extreme challenge. There's still very minimal reward to playing a task where that's your peak accuracy. 20%, this is slightly beneficial. You have good reason to play a task like this. 30%, this is a really good challenge. You should be utilizing variants where your best score comes around 30%. 40% accuracy. I have a lot to say about this one, but this is where your aim starts to feel good. This is where you find bursts of consistency. This is where I personally feel like I'm starting to understand the task itself. Alright, right here in the middle of the sheet, 50% accuracy. This is the turning point. This is where it's not too easy, not too challenging. This whole list is completely opinionated, but this, in my opinion, is the most ideal for improvement. I need to say this again. Literally, none of this is scientific. This is anecdotal. This is me playing Kovaaks and AimLab and all this other stuff for 2,500 hours. So with this video here, I'm posing that 50% as your peak accuracy. Those scenarios are really the most ideal form of challenge. At 60%, the task is no longer frustrating to play. You know, at 40% we said your aim starts to feel good. Now at 60%, your aim feels even better with more consistency. At 70%, I'm posing that this is the starting point of mastery for a task. So when Season 5 was in development and as it approached beta, there was word going around that 70% was a marker that Celestial was not supposed to push beyond. So that is to say, the threshold for Celestial was not supposed to extend beyond 70% accuracy for certain scenarios. As I understand it, that marker was too hard to keep up with and keep modifying thresholds for. So ultimately that idea was scrapped. But I think it still works to my point here in stating that 70 is that beginning point of mastery for a scenario. At 80% accuracy, the task is very easy, but it's still reasonable to play. At 90% accuracy, it's extremely easy, and I'm saying there's very minimal reward for playing. And then 100% accuracy, you're just wasting your time. Moving right along, for our performance-inspired training, we're going to dive back into some progressive overload. Just like progressive overload in aim training has those parallels to gym or weight training, I'm using a similar terminology here with the split. With this, I'm calling it the 30-50-70 split, of course referring to those accuracy targets. So a little prerequisite theory for what we're talking about here. Speed isolation is a term I'm going to be using. You can see here the thumbnail I have for a video where I talk about isolating for speed as a variable in your training. So within the same mindset, we're going to have 5 unique speed profiles, and then players will push their performance to 3 accuracy targets of 30, 50, and 70. There's also some prerequisite theory into how these speed profiles are selected, and you can see from a point here in my video on screen, kind of like this tracking training theory with smoothness and precision. I don't mean for this video to be too confusing for newcomers to my channel, but this is kind of to show you guys I'm building off of previous ideas. So if you want to learn more about those ideas that I am working off of, those videos are shown. So the mold for our speed profiles. This is a standardization that I'm coming up with where any tracking task I decide I want to push my score on this, these are the variants I'm going to create. The first one is a staple of my channel, and it's slow-mo. This one has a 40% timescale reduction, and it's 40% slower with its bot speed. Just so you guys know, when you modify the timescale, either making it faster or slower, you are also modifying the bot speed, but any modification above or below 1 increases or decreases all the speed profiles of the bot. So for example, how the bot strafes. Next up, we have Serf Smooth. This is a 5% timescale reduction, and it's 10% slower. Next up, we have Standard Speed, which of course is standard. Nothing has changed except for the size or the radius of the bot. Looking back at this picture here, though, I'm going to use my cursor. We have two of these that are the normal speed of the bot. So aligning with our tracking training theory, we're going to have two standard speed bots. So even though on screen here you only see 5 molds, there's going to be 6 different things to play, and that's because we have 2 for our standard speed. Then for our next variant mold, we have SF, sort of fast. That's a 5% timescale increase with a 10% increase to the bot speed. And then the last mold here, extreme speed. This one is crazy. It's a 20% timescale increase, and it is 20% faster. So with all that yapping, let's go ahead and examine what these molds look like in a playlist. Alright, we've made it to the most important part of the video. 6 minutes in, I'm sharing with you guys the tracking scenario I've decided to flesh out these methods for is PGTI Voltaic. I chose PGTI Voltaic because it is an old benchmark. It doesn't have VDIM methods. It doesn't have the awesome Voltaic variants that 4RK has made. I chose PGTI Voltaic to show you guys you can make these variants for any type of tracking scenario. Really, you can probably follow this mold for target switching and some of the clicking scenarios. I'm just a tracking guy, so that's what I keep my scope at. So you'll see at the top the 2 supporting ideas that came together to help me form this playlist: speed isolation training and tracking training theory. And so from those methods, I have a 6 scenario playlist, and I truly feel like these 6 scenarios are really all that you would need to get better at PGTI Voltaic. Of course, there are tons of other scenarios that will help you with PGTI Voltaic, but specifically targeting our performance for the main PGTI Voltaic bench, these 6 scenarios I feel so confident will help you. You can see starting at the top, it's the slower variants. The 2 in the middle follow the speed profile for the original scenario, and then the bottom 2 are the faster variants. 5 of these variants were uploaded by me, but I have to give a thank you and a shout out to Hisku for PGTI Voltaic 15% smaller. That's a variant that he uploaded a long time ago, and there's some really good players on there. So this is a great playlist for you guys that don't want to play a lot, but this video is titled Performance Inspired Training. So let's dive into what that looks like for PGTI Voltaic. So here's our Performance Inspired PGTI playlist. Obviously, the only person that could set accuracy targets for this is me. I can only build a playlist on the accuracies that I hit. A vast majority of you will not hit my targets. It is totally fine if you want to play this playlist just how I made it. But here in the next segment, I'm going to show you guys how to modify these tasks so that you can play this playlist the way that it's intended with 70%, 50%, and 30% accuracy targets. You'll also see on screen some of these that are titled like V3 or further below where you can't see from the screenshot. There's one that's V2. All that means is it took me a couple times to get the scenario correctly uploaded. Don't worry about the V3. These are all variants of the original playlist that I made. So let's take a deeper look at this. Our red 70% accuracy, the extreme big version. On these 70% accuracy variants, we're aiming for an accuracy threshold of 67 to 70.99% accuracy. As we talked about in the beginning, going past 70% accuracy, we have diminishing returns. Really, we want to keep it in this little window where we have the mental benefit of understanding mastery for this type of speed profile. Then our green one here, let's look at the 50% accuracy. This one again is what I'm calling that optimal challenge. We're aiming for an accuracy threshold of 48% to 51.99%. So if you start hitting 52 or 53%, it's time to build a new variant, and I'll go into that here in a second as well. If we're getting 46, 45, 42%, this one is a little bit too hard for you. Okay, last but not least here, the blue one, 30% accuracy. With this, we're aiming for an accuracy threshold of 29% to 32.99%. We really don't want to be below that 29% threshold. At those low numbers like 24, 25, 26, of course you are challenging yourself, but it's just a little bit extreme. So we're going to try and keep our performance in this window until we're skilled enough to push it past 33% accuracy, and then we make a new variant. So speaking of making a new variant, when you've pushed your performance past the target, it's time to progress to a marginally harder version of the task. What does that mean? Making a variant 3 to 5% smaller. So you can see my little calculator on screen here. PGTI Voltaic, it has a radius of 25. If we want to make it 4% smaller, we're going to do 25 times 0.96, and that is going to give us 24. 24 is our radius if we want to make it 4% smaller. So I'm going to show you guys the best way to do this stuff in kovaaks, and that's going to wrap up the video. Okay, so here we are on kovaaks. Let's say that I want to do better on smoothbot Voltaic. I see a variant that I like called Serf, extra smooth Serf. I play it and it's a little bit too easy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to download it. Then I come to local scenarios here and hit the pencil. When you get this message about unpacking the scenario, hit yes every time. And then there's two ways to modify the size. The first one is we go here to the smoothbot, and then we look at it, and it's pretty big, so we can just do our standard reduction. But here we go 100, then come down to save as 100 radius, right? That's what I've shown you guys a lot before. Then here it is in local. We can create an offline playlist, and we save it to the offline playlist. Please do not start uploading all of your variants to the online scenarios tab. It's all the same just to play these offline. You can still see your accuracy percentages when you go into the local scenarios tab and hover over it. As long as you have this challenge ticked right here, an offline version is the same as an online version. See at the top left, it's got the counter going. But yeah, going back into this scenario, unpack it. The other way to modify the size is to go under challenge here and then look for target size. And then if we wanted to do a 4% reduction, just do 0.96 like that. Save as 4% smaller. Then we can add it to our playlist, which, what did we call that playlist? Smoothbot training. Sometimes it won't save right away, you just fiddle with it. And here we are with a playlist like this. If you build your offline playlist to follow this format with the different speed profile molds, hitting your standard accuracy targets, you are going to be highly successful. I suppose it's not out of the realm of possibility that this type of training wouldn't work for you. Maybe you don't have the patience, maybe you don't care to create the variants. Whatever it is, I hope you still take some aspects of what I've brought here in this video and take it to your own training. As I said before, if you just want to play the playlist that I built, that's totally fine, and I am going to be making playlists for other scenarios. But with all that being said, I hope you feel equipped to go and tackle your favorite scenarios, so good luck and happy tracking. See you all in the next video.